We're getting new details about the now infamous birthday book given to Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th. The Wall Street Journal has new reporting about the contributors, which it says include not only Trump, but former President Bill Clinton, Wall Street billionaires, and other prominent celebrities. Clinton declined to comment, but said in 2019 that he knew of nothing of Epstein's crimes and had not spoken to him in more than a decade. And the New York Times reports that President Trump had signed another admiring note to Epstein in a copy of Trump's book, The Art of the Comeback, dated October of '97, writing, "You are the greatest." NBC News has not independently verified either of those reports. Joining me now, the reporter who broke that story, David Enrich, who is deputy investigations editor for the New York Times. David, the White House has acknowledged that in 1997, Trump and Epstein still had a relationship, but has called reports that Trump participated in that birthday book fake. So walk us through your new reporting.
Well, it confirms that Trump contributed to the birthday book. And I can't. It's pretty simple, really. And Trump has been denying and downplaying the extent of his relationship with Epstein for a while now. And every new bit of reporting we've done and that some of our competitors have done as well suggests that what we've known for a long time is true, which is that Epstein and Trump were quite close in the 90s and into the early 2000s.
Does it seem at all likely, as some people have speculated, for example, that Donald Trump said, yeah, go ahead, put a page in for me, or that he really didn't know even that there was a birthday book? What do we absolutely know about this book? And by the way, where is it right now?
Well, the birthday book is, our understanding, is in the possession of Jeffrey Epstein's estate, which is being controlled by some of his former lawyers and advisors. I think it's possible with Trump's submission to the birthday book that someone else prepared it for him and he signed his name. And I don't know that that's the case, but I think that is plausible. But I also think that it is very unlikely that Trump himself didn't sign the book and or wasn't aware that it was being prepared on his behalf. Again, Trump and Epstein, by all appearances, were close friends, or were quite friendly, I should say, and spent a lot of time together.
Yeah, we have seen over the course of days more video, right? More pictures of them together. There's no question about the fact that they had a friendship. And Donald Trump essentially acknowledged that when he said, you know, we were friends, but we had a falling out, right? The question of, though, contributing to this book, is that something potentially Ghislaine Maxwell might be able to clear up in her conversations that she had up until 12:30 this afternoon and all day yesterday with Todd Blanche?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell is the one who put this book together. I think she is the holder of a lot of information and a lot of secrets about Epstein's relationship with quite a few powerful people, including Donald Trump. But again, I don't think there's really any dispute that, and I know Trump is denying it, but I do not think there's any dispute among people who have studied this and looked into the facts and done reporting that Trump did submit to the birthday book. That does not mean that Trump had an improper relationship with Epstein or knew about Epstein's crimes. It just means, again, what we have known for a long time, which is that Epstein and Trump were pals in the 90s and early 2000s. And what's notable to me is the degree to which Trump is denying this and the ferocity with which he's denying it. And that has surprised me. And I think that it suggests something about his sensitivity to this stuff. And it makes me wonder what else there is to know that has got his guard up so ferociously here.
Again, because, frankly, being friends with him or being mentioned in what we're now calling the Epstein files is no proof of wrongdoing. So, David Enrich, I have a feeling you're going to be doing more reporting, and we may have you back on the show at another time. But some great reporting so far. Thank you.